8 influencers, 8 portfolios, who built the best crypto portfolio near the March 2024 top. Each one starts with 10K, evenly split between their picks or allocated as described in their video. Performance is tracked from the video's release date. Let's dive in. First up, Jung, one of the biggest crypto YouTubers with over 2 million subscribers, and this time it gets really interesting. In my previous video, we looked at his Q4 2023 portfolio, which ended up being the best performing one among the 8 influencer portfolios from that period. Now we're jumping to a completely different setup, a portfolio from a video released in March 2024. And yeah, this one's a whole different beast. Instead of just 5 picks, we've got 21. The only survivor from the original portfolio is Ethereum. The rest are gone. Big caps out, replaced with a mix of riskier, narrative-driven plays heavy on AI. FET, Ocean, AIT, ARKM, ChainGPT, plus some gaming like Nakamoto Games and Beam, a few memes like Trump, Toshi, Bonk, and a bunch of others. Here is the thing, back when the market was just starting to pick up, with on-chain indicators nowhere near any cycle top, Brian was holding a simple, safe portfolio that steadily climbed, at least in USD terms. But then he ditched it and rotated into a much higher risk basket. How did that go? Not great. Only 2 out of the 21 picks are up as of today, Toshi and Aerodrome. Almost everything else is down 70% or more. Looking at the USD chart, there was a small spike early on, then it started declining in April and kept dropping well into the summer over 60%. After a double bottom in August and September, it rallied back to break even in December. But then it collapsed again, hitting a brutal low of -78%. It's starting to recover now as the market picks up, but there's still a long way to go. The Bitcoin chart is even worse. Just down, sideways, then down again. It never managed to build any lasting uptrend against BTC. From top to bottom, it lost over 80% of its Bitcoin valuation. It is trying to bounce now, but it's going to take a full-on alt season for this one to even think about making a new high against Bitcoin. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 18% in USD. Current value is -64% in USD and -74% in BTC. As a second one today, Elio Trades, another big name in the crypto YouTube space with well over 500,000 subscribers. We're looking at a video he dropped on March 28, 2024. He mentioned 17 coins leaning into AI, gaming, and meme narratives. OPSEC, AIA's GPU 0x0, IMX, Ronin, Prime, Shrapnel, Super, Wild, Bonk, Mog, and a couple others. Out of all of them, only one is up slightly. Most are down 70% or more, with OPSEC taking the crown, down 99%. The USD chart starts off similarly to Jung's portfolio, straight down with a bottom in September, around -60%. But the rally that followed was actually much more impressive. The portfolio climbed all the way back to plus 35% in December, a solid comeback. But when the market broke down again, it didn't hold up. It dropped to over -75% from the original 10K, and while it's trying to recover now, the bounce is weak so far. The Bitcoin chart held up decently until January 2025, when it completely collapsed. Initially, the portfolio lost around 50% of its BTC valuation. Then, it formed a double bottom between September and November and almost clawed back to break-even in BTC terms. But that was the last moment of strength. After that, it broke down hard, now sitting roughly 80% below its original Bitcoin value with no meaningful recovery in sight yet. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 36% in USD. Current value is -64% in USD and -75% in BTC. Next up is House of Crypto, a channel that has been steadily growing despite lower interest in crypto. A portfolio video was published on March 19, 2024. While there's a slight complication in tracking its performance, there's also a unique aspect worth digging into. The problem is that some of the picks and allocations are arbitrary. The interesting part is that he mentioned allocating 50 to 75% of position and then wait for lower to allocate the rest. So, let's do a comparison. I'll show you what a 100% upfront allocation looks like versus a 50% entry with the rest deployed lower. The coins are BTC, Optimism, Sui, and Link, each clearly marked as 10% allocations. The rest was more loosely defined and includes AR, Delicium, OLAS, Fala, Filecoin, USDT, and Sol. Looking at the USD chart, the pattern is familiar, as expected for someone buying right around the March top. It drops sharply and bottoms in August at minus 55%. Then it rallies, making a new high at 11.5K in December. That's a 15% gain, not huge, but still better than being underwater. After that, it moved sideways into the US inauguration and collapsed right after. The Bitcoin chart is much more brutal. The pattern is down, sideways, down on repeat. This portfolio never managed to establish a real uptrend against BTC. Most of the picks are bleeding sats, and one solid 10% allocation in SUI isn't enough to reverse that. Overall, from peak to low, it lost over 50% of its Bitcoin value, and here, the recovery isn't looking as strong as it does in USD terms. Now let's take a look at how things change if you go with a 50% entry first and then buy the other 50% lower in what House of Crypto called the buy zones. Here are the transactions I used. Keep in mind, everyone can have their own interpretation of buy levels, so this is just one example. Starting with the USD chart comparison. The early part of the chart looks different because that additional buying happened in April, which bumps up the initial value. But from there, both charts follow a similar path. The key difference is the numbers. The peak value is higher, and as of now, we're closer to break-even. Now imagine splitting it even further, buying 25% up front and DCAing through the summer. The results could have been even better, likely by a lot. This experiment really highlights how going all in when the market is hot usually isn't the smartest move. Same story with the Bitcoin chart. The early difference is again due to buying more in April. The overall shape of the chart is similar, but the values are clearly improved. And finally, here's how individual coins performed under both setups. Some might argue it's not worth sacrificing upside in case the market keeps running, but clearly, better average prices can make a big difference when things go sideways or down. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 15% in USD. Current value is minus 22% in USD and minus 48% in BTC. With 50% deployed lower, the portfolio peaked at plus 34% in USD. Current value is minus 11% in USD and minus 41% in BTC. Cryptobanter's Ran, a content machine with his regular live shows. Ran dropped this portfolio in late March 2024, and it featured a record number of coins, over 40 in total. We're talking BTC, Sol, Ton, AR, FTM, Near, Tau, AVAX, Say, Injective, Render, plus a bunch of smaller cap plays like Astroport, Vertex, Nasana, Clore, CFG, Crown. You name it, it was probably in there. The top holdings were Bitcoin, Solana, Ton, and Arweave, each around 5%. The rest were split into smaller chunks, mostly between 1 to 2.5% allocations. The portfolio started dipping right away alongside the broader market through Q2 and Q3, bottoming out in early August during the Japanese carry trade unwind. From there, it rallied into December, making a slight new high just below 11K. So technically, it did recover, but barely. Then came the next leg down. As the market collapsed again, this portfolio went as low as minus 64%. The diversification once again didn't provide downside protection. Bitcoin is much better for that job. It's been trying to climb back, but it's still nowhere near its December peak. Now let's talk BTC performance, and here, things look even worse. This portfolio never really held up against Bitcoin. From the start, it steadily dropped, losing about 50% by August. There was some recovery in November, thanks to the rally after Trump's election, but that bounce was short-lived. It collapsed again and now sits around 1/3 of its starting BTC value. So overall, this was a super diversified catch-them-all portfolio. It looked like Ran was trying to capture everything: L1s, L2s, AI, real-world assets, gaming, infrastructure, pretty much every narrative you could think of. The problem is most of it didn't stick. Some of these coins saw decent pumps individually, but the sheer number made it impossible for any single winner to carry the portfolio. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 8% in USD. Current value is minus 47% in USD and minus 60% in BTC. Now it's time for Becker, probably the most creative crypto YouTuber out there. He dropped his portfolio picks at the end of March 2024, focusing heavily on gaming with an AI twist. His gaming picks included Beam, IMX, Prime, Super, Cetify, Crown, Ronin, and Big Time, while on the AI side we had 0x0, OPSEC, GPU, ZKML, and a few others. We can see Becker's portfolios evolving with time. In 2023, he started with all-in gaming, Now he's starting to switch to AI. By the way, it is good to note how was the sentiment looking in March 2024. You might not remember, but I certainly do. More or less everyone was expecting higher, definitely not a 6 months correction which happened. A lot of people also did bet that next best performing narrative will be gaming. House of Crypto did predict that in his portfolio video. The market surprised again. Performance-wise, it was rough from the start. The portfolio went straight down after launch, bottoming in September with a brutal -73% drawdown. It did get some relief in November's rally, climbing to around $8,350 in early December, but still not even back to break-even. Then came another collapse. It dropped all the way to -85% from the original value. And while there's been a slight recovery recently, the portfolio is still deep underwater, down around 80% overall. The Bitcoin chart is similar to others, but not quite the same. The start looks familiar, down then sideways, but the November bounce was much stronger, doubling the portfolio's Bitcoin valuation. After that, though, it collapsed even harder than most. Becker's picks move aggressively in both directions, great in good times, punishing in bad ones. Every single position is in the red. Almost all of the gaming plays are down more than 80% and some never caught any bounce. The worst performer is OPSEC, sitting at a staggering -99%. The best performer is DSync, and even that is still down over 30%. So, a clear high-risk, high-reward strategy that just didn't play out this time. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at +6% in USD. Current value is -79% in USD and -85% in BTC. No BS Crypto. A channel that's been picking up steam this cycle, he leans into the analytical side of things. He clearly likes the numbers like myself, so it wasn't a surprise when he found my channel and even commented on my previous video. The portfolio was shared on April 12 and includes 8 coins. NEAR, HBAR, TIA, Wormhole, Pyth, GFI, and SNS, all with 10% allocations, while Manta and Flux got slightly larger slices at 15%. A mix of trending names like TIA and NEAR, combined with sneakier picks like Flux and SNS. Surprisingly, the chart held up well at first, staying relatively strong until June. That's notable since every other chart we've looked at started dipping right away in April. But then it collapsed fast, down 50% in just a month between June and July. The market pressure was too strong. It bottomed at -61% in August and mostly went sideways leading into the US election. There was a decent rally into December, with the portfolio briefly crossing above break-even and peaking at 10.3K, but that didn't last. It broke down again and recently hit a new low, down 71%. It's trying to recover now, but still has a long way to go. The Bitcoin chart tells a similar story. It held up well until June, but the market's pressure eventually took over. The November rally was almost as strong as Becker's, but the downside wasn't as severe. After that, it dropped to a new low recently and is now struggling to recover against Bitcoin. Every single pick is down 60% or more, except one. HBAR managed to win against the broader trend, sitting over 85% up and standing as the only bright spot in an otherwise rough performance. Entering the market in March, April 2024 turned out to be a bad decision once again. The portfolio had potential, but with that timing and only a small allocation to its best performer HBAR, it just couldn't work out. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at +3% in USD. Current value is -61% in USD and -68% in BTC. Next up, Lark Davis, another big name in the crypto YouTube space, with an audience of well over 500,000 subscribers. This portfolio is based on a video dropped April 14, 2024, 9 crypto coins that will 9x in 2024. 2 of those coins, Tyco and DOP, weren't available at the time, so I've skipped them. That leaves us with 7, FTM, Nibiru, MPC, Jupiter, Ordiswap, AIT, and EMC. Some established names in there like Phantom and Jupiter, but also some very exotic picks, at least for my taste. And the results reflect that. Almost every coin, except for Phantom and Jupiter, is down 95% or more. Now looking at the USD chart. The portfolio went straight down after launch, bottoming around -70% in September. It bounced during November's rally, recovering to about 2/3 of its original value. But then came another leg down, crashing all the way to -84%. It's barely recovered since, still down around 80%. The Bitcoin chart is even more brutal, pretty much just down, sideways, then down again, now sitting close to a minus 90% drawdown in BTC terms. There was no real strength during the post-election rally either. In fact, it even dropped in mid-November before managing a short 2-week bounce. This portfolio went all in on high risk, high reward, but the exotic bets didn't pay off. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 4% in USD. Current value is minus 79% in USD and minus 86% in BTC. Altcoin Daily. Another massive channel with over 1.5 million subscribers. We'll take a look at the video dropped on April 10, 2024, with a pretty bold title suggesting you could retire in 5 years from these picks. 3 out of the 9 coins mentioned weren't available at the time, but 2 of those, Foxy and Easy, launched just 2 days after the video, so I decided to include them. The only one I skipped was Gun, which launched way later in March 2025. So here's the final list: Dot, ChainGPT, Karate, Cody, TX20, Easy, Foxy, and Cardano. You've got 2 solid L1s in there, some AI, gaming, a meme, and a few more exotic plays. Out of the 8 picks, 7 are down 50% or more. The only one currently in the green is Cardano. The USD chart looks pretty familiar at this point. It went down hard, more than 70%, bottomed sometime between August and November, then got a bounce after Trump's election win. It almost made it back to break-even, but not quite. After that, it dropped again, hitting around minus 75%, and it's been struggling since. The Bitcoin chart tells a clear story. When altcoins were weak, it just dumped, losing about 2/3 of its BTC value before that November rally. Then it had a strong recovery, almost 2x against Bitcoin in a month. It looked promising, but it didn't last. The portfolio broke down again, and now it's sitting even lower, with no signs of another recovery like the one we saw in November. Overall, once again, only 1 position is in the green, while 4 positions are down around 90% or more. That's way too much weight for Cardano to carry. The only hope now is a proper alt season. Final numbers. The portfolio peaked at plus 0% in USD. Current value is minus 66% in USD and minus 71% in BTC. I have a few takeaways, but before we get into that, I've started a newsletter where I'll be sharing some of my research every 2 weeks. Link is in the description. Key takeaways. I could probably make a whole separate video just about this, but I'll leave you with 3 quick points. Buying local tops can completely wipe out potential gains. Sometimes you get lucky and the market keeps moving up, but usually, it hurts. Entering partially can significantly improve results. Increasing risk when the market is heated can be devastating if the trend reverses. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, check out my previous video where I covered how Q4 2023 influencer portfolios performed.